is an ongoing collection and exhibit of photographs, art, and stories about shoes. For centuries, shoes have been featured in art, music, and movies. Think of Vincent van Gogh's 1886 painting titled A Pair of Shoes, Elvis Presley's song Blue Suede Shoes, Dorothy's ruby red slippers in The Wizard of Oz. Those slippers sold for $660,000 at auction in 2000. Powerful memories are made as we wear our shoes. Sharing our stories and art allows us to connect to each other, contribute to the project, and become part of a larger whole, often inspiring new creations to share. Ready for Anything was inspired by a story about cats being neutered on the farm. Rain Boots was inspired by a photograph. The colorful stripes and the reflections on the black boots intrigued me. I left some masking fluid to simulate mud. Tired is a small painting that whispers. I scrubbed the surface raw after painting it to make it feel worn out. If you have a story about or a photograph about shoes that you would like to include in the exhibit album for sharing, please send to shoesinourlifetime@gmail.com. Stories. When we castrated the cats on the farm, we put their heads and front feet into an old cowboy boot first, neutered them, and let them get out by themselves without clawing us to pieces. A 54-year-old man. When my dad died, we were cleaning out his closet and found 4 pairs of the same shoes, still in the boxes. Sears had a sale, and he was thrifty like that. My grandmother lived alone and was nervous about that. She put a dog's dish and a pair of men's size 13 work boots outside her back door as a deterrent to burglars. My neighbor Joan told me about her dad's barn boots. They had long cracks and several holes in them. Rather than buying new ones, he used our hot glue gun and piled it on high, declaring them good as new. Those are the boots they kept in loving memory of Dad, Joan Albrecht. I was at a wedding, and I had on my new white shoes and white flowers on them. The soles began to peel off and caught under the floorboard, and I fell flat on my face, a 10-year-old girl. My mom had my baby shoes bronzed and put my picture in a frame behind them. I still have them. Sharon Decker. Michelle and Paul Langowski shared that Paul had a club foot as an infant. After 50 years, they still have his baby shoes with the brace on them and allowed me to photograph them. My husband had a club foot as an infant, and 50 years later, we still have his shoes with the braces on them. Paul and Michelle Langowski. I'm inspired by the composition, textures, and colors of these photographs of boots and baby shoes taken in our yard. Back in the spring of 1970, my husband Bob found that the school where we were teaching, Powder River High School in Montana, had a dark room. He started a photo club, and we went on a photo shoot on the ranch of one of the students. Inside the building, where the light came through a hole in the roof, I found these boots nailed to the wall. They appear to be short boots with a walking heel as opposed to a riding heel for stirrups. Lynn Dixon. Rain Boots by Kathy Schoen, watercolor on paper, 11 by 14. This photograph by Jen inspired me to paint rain boots. You'll find this painting later in the exhibit. Dad's Boots and Hat by Kathy Schoen, watercolor on paper, 11 by 15. I was inspired by these photographs of some of his favorite things. This painting is also featured in the exhibit. A Good Pair by Kathy Schoen, watercolor on paper, 11 by 14. This is a reference photo used for A Good Pair shown later in the exhibit. My mom had my baby shoes bronzed and put my picture behind them. I still display them today. Sharon Decker. Ready for Anything by Kathy Schoen, watercolor on paper, 11 by 14. When we neutered cats on the farm, we would slip them head first into a cowboy boot. It protected us from getting clawed up as they came out. A 54-year-old man. young father told me when he takes off his construction boots and sets them next to his daughter's ballet slippers, he knows he is home and why he works so hard, a 34-year-old man. I still have my wedding slippers tucked away in their original box. I have been married for 46 years, a 70-year-old woman. I remember some shoes called Mary Jane's that I had to put Vaseline on them on Saturday nights so I could wear them to church on Sunday as they had to be conditioned, a 95-year-old woman. A stranger I met at Music Fest told me about a photograph she took 50 years ago at an abandoned log cabin where the roof had caved in. She found a pair of women's boots nailed to a log wall. The tops of the boots had been chewed off by critters over the years. Her photographs are included in the exhibit album. My son had a pair of black Nike tennis shoes with a hole worn in the toe. We had no money for more, so he duct taped the whole toe on both feet so he could have a matching pair. I remember trying to dye a pair of white shoes to match my dress. I bought dye and cooked it in a soup pot and dyed my shoes. My feet turned blue every time I wore them. When I was a young man, I went home with a woman for a night. I ran into her father in the morning, and he said, I knew she had a guess. Those boots don't look like hers. No two shoes are the same, even when they are a pair. Karen. I was 13 when Converse tennis shoes allowed you to design your own shoes, custom decorated, including picking the sole color. Until my 18th birthday, my mother got those for Christmas. I loved doing that. I had a dog who chewed up my new high heels before I could even wear them. Ruth Ann. I had to throw away 2 pairs of shoes today, and it was really hard. One pair didn't fit anymore, but had great memories, and the other pair were falling apart. I also had to make room for 2 new pair. Karen. When I was teaching, I made my students take off their shoes and write a story about where those shoes have been. A 45-year-old woman. A woman shared she had a pair of shoes she only wore when she had to do public speaking. They gave her confidence. A 46-year-old woman. At a recent family gathering, our granddaughters decided to dress up for our 1-year-old's birthday party. One of them ended up crying hysterically because she didn't have fancy shoes. Her mother suggested decorating her flip-flops with glitter and nail polish. They spent hours creating the best pair. They were a hit of the party, and a shared memory is priceless. I bought a beautiful pair of red patent leather shoes that were too big for my daughter. She tried them on every day for at least 6 months until they finally fit. Then she decided they were her church shoes. We had to carry her to the car so they wouldn't get dirty. She loved those shoes. My husband's initials were RL, so on his rain boots he would always write R on the right foot and L on the left. If you have a story about shoes or a photograph to share, please email to shoesinourlifetime@gmail.com. The photographs and stories will be included in the exhibit album for sharing. Thank you, Kathy. During a Minnesota winter, at my kitchen counter, I created Lily. She is the main character in my first children's book titled Miss Elephonse of Africa. Lily wants to be fancy and become the most beautiful elephant in the world. In this humorous and colorful tale, Lily learns what she really wants. I learned some things as well, getting the paintings ready for this exhibit. I miss dreaming up poses and situations to paint a fat, dainty, happy elephant that makes me smile just looking at her. Some of the other characters in the book suggest they may have stories of their own. I have given each watercolor a title. Their composition, color, and content is strong enough to stand alone. If you have comments or questions, please contact me at kshane10@gmail.com. Thank you, Kathy Schoen.